Friday night here, Conference USA Championship game, Western Kentucky at UTSA, University of Texas, San Antonio here. The Roadrunners, what they're catching, -3 points here? That's what we're seeing. Western Kentucky is the favorite now. Not sure if I got that wrong, Ralph, but 72.5 being the total right now in, of course, the Alamodome. So we'll have controlled climate here. Western Kentucky throwing around. UTSA only one loss in the season, that being their last game to North Texas. A little bit surprising by most accounts, considering they were 9-point favorites, 10-point favorites. What are you seeing here, Ralph? What are you liking in the Alamodome Friday night, Western Kentucky, UTSA?
Well, I do have some concern UTSA lost that game, not only because of the loss to North Texas to keep an undefeated season. They have failed to cover 3 straight. They were 8-1 ATS their first 9 games, and back-to-back failures to cash a ticket. Western Kentucky, on the flip side, as hot as it gets down the stretch. Remember, they lost to this UTSA team 52-46, and that was 4 straight losses. Western Kentucky was 1-4 to start the year. They beat UT Martin, lose to Army, lose to Indiana, lose to Michigan State, lose to UTSA, and then turn it around. One of the best passing attacks in college football with Zappi, for 52-9 ratio now. Split in the running game. Again, they are a pass-happy team that throws the ball. They're completing 69%. Well, can UTSA slow them down? Well, they hold foes to 58%, but that number is a bit misleading because of the competition they played. Looking back at the first game, Western Kentucky was 38 of 60 for 523 yards passing, 670 yards overall. I do have one system I want to bring up. And to me, it makes sense when a team is on the road and their opponent's given up 35 points or more their last game, and the team has won by 28 points or more in back-to-back games. Those teams have covered 64% of the spread. So Western Kentucky is off a 35-point win against FAU. Western Kentucky is off a 32-point win against against Marshall, and UTSA allowed over 35 points in their last game as they allowed North Texas 456 yards. Those teams with Western Kentucky, 64% in that play. I'm going to lean that way, and even though the total's crazy high, Western Kentucky is one of the fastest-paced teams. I think they can score early. If they do that, UTSA will have to speed up their pace. I lean with the over as well.
Okay. And Robbie, coming to you next, UTSA went on the road to Bowling Green, Kentucky, where Western Kentucky is located, and won 52-46 earlier in the season. That was on October 9th. However, coming into this game, UTSA has dropped 3 straight against the spread, whereas Western Kentucky, man, they've been on a roll, cashing 5 straight ATS. The market kind of like in Western Kentucky here in the last day or two. How do you feel about the Conference USA Championship game, Robbie?
Well, I've liked Western Kentucky all season long and dating back to preseason, and they've done a really good job, certainly with this air raid offense. Let me go back. Ralph did a really good job laying the groundwork here, but let me go back to that earlier meeting between these two and just point out a couple of key sequences that probably stopped Western Kentucky from winning that game. Right before halftime, UTSA is down 24-21. And Western Kentucky's on the march. They're on the march. They're looking to go ahead 28-24. Minute left in the game. They get picked off by Western Kentucky on the 26th. Western Kentucky's returning the football. They fumble as they're returning. UTSA gets it back and pushes a touchdown in right before halftime to take a 28-24 lead. They extend that thing all the way out to 42-31, guys, and it looked like they were about to, have enough cushion between they and Western Kentucky. But in the end, right at the end of this game, Western Kentucky closes it to 52-46, and then they go right down the field, first and goal, 5-yard line, with about a minute left again, under a minute left. they get a 15-yard penalty on a pass completion to the 1-yard line, backs them all the way up to the 22 plays later. They get picked inside the 5, and the game's over. And they're basically a couple of sequences away from winning that game right there against Texas San Antonio. So Ralph asked the question, could UTSA do anything to slow down Western Kentucky's pass game? And I don't know that they can. That being said, Western Kentucky hasn't shown the ability to slow UTSA down at all. UTSA put up 1,200 total yards between the two in that first game. Obviously, they both did well. Maybe Western Kentucky's run defense is a better fit against the UTSA run offense. Maybe that's one slight difference you could find. Drew, you mentioned perfect conditions here. If you're playing Western Kentucky, you really don't want perfect conditions. AstroTurf or field turf, excuse me. The heat is no wind to speak of, perfect temperature. The game last week to North Texas, and I know UTSA closed the season 0-3 against the spread. The game last week against North Texas, I think, is debatable, right? I think many people saw it coming. I was in that bunch where UTSA clinches the West Division title the week before against UAB, and they do it on the final play of the game, and then they have to go on the road to end the season against a team in North Texas that's really come on the second half of the year. So is that loss excusable because UTSA was still reliving last week, or is it a sign that they're really staggering down the stretch? I don't know. You got to make up your own mind there. I think I'm with Ralph, though. I lean Western Kentucky. I think this offense is just too high-powered. Nobody stopped it all season long. Even with home field here, I don't know that that's enough to help UTSA. And again, you got two teams, guys, that really haven't been in this particular situation before. A lot of upperclassmen on both sides. I think WKU has shown they can handle the road. They played some Big Ten teams, too, and did pretty well. So I'm going to lean Western Kentucky, despite the fact that, you know, UTSA is 3-0 as an underdog this year. All three were on the road, but they are 3-0 as an underdog.
Good points there, Robbie. Good stuff for Friday Night Lights Action Conference USA.